What up, people? Episode 118, Wake and Rake Podcast, all part of the Believe Network. Last week, we talked about always looking toward the future. If you haven't caught last week's episode, by the way, it was breaking down which teams had the best futures and, who's next, essentially. And we talked about the Reds, Washington Nationals. If you haven't watched it, listen to it, give it a watch back, episode 117. Well, we're going to kind of continue that trend here in episode 118, talking about expansion teams. Now, Rob Manfred already came out and said that it's only a matter of time before Major League Baseball expands from its current state of 30 Major League Baseball teams to 32 teams. So 2 expansion teams are going to be on the come up relatively soon. He retires in 2029, Manfred does. And so he said before that 2029 year comes around, MLB expansion is going to be here. So today's episode is going to be centered on where I would like to see Major League Baseball expand into. And it might be a little bit of a surprise because I might pick somewhere not even in this country. So we'll break that down in detail. BetOnline is your number one source for the NBA and NHL playoffs this season. Every stat, every matchup, and even live odds while the games are being played. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of our over 150 slots games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Don't forget to use promo code BELIEVE for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, the game starts here. All right, do the download, subscribe thing for me. That's how we get our clicks. That's how we get our episodes. That's how we do the things that we do here on the Wake and Rake Podcast. Follow us, subscribe, do all the things. Appreciate you. All right. Let's talk expansion teams. Now, I already mentioned Rob Manfred, and this according to ESPN, he's already hopes to have a process in place for the league to expand to 32 teams before 2029. A lot of candidates. This is coming straight from ESPN.com. Austin, Texas, San Antonio, Texas were listed as potential spots for an expansion franchise. Charlotte, North Carolina has been floated. Portland, Oregon has been floated. Mexico City, Montreal, Canada, a couple international destinations. And in Nashville, Tennessee, and Orlando, Florida, also potential destinations for MLB expansion teams. Now, we've seen cities kind of come out of nowhere, and you get major investor involved. Let's say hypothetically, I don't know, Oklahoma City, something like that. You get this major investor, and they have all the funds and they have the infrastructure in place. We could see something like that between now 2029. Gosh, 2029, I'm going to be 33 years old. Whew. Getting old. See the gray hairs. But a lot of cities that haven't really been discussed in full yet is the potential for international expansion teams. Now, I mentioned Mexico City and Montreal, but there's a certain part of the world that's relatively close by to the United States that doesn't get discussed nearly enough for expansion teams, and that is the Caribbean, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, South America, Central America, including Mexico. Baseball is king in a lot of these countries. And there's a couple different locations that I want to break down on today's episode, how to make it all work. Because I could make the case that Major League Baseball, it's been around for 150 years plus. People know about baseball. People know the ins and outs of baseball. People know the rules of baseball. People know you go to a ballpark, you buy a hot dog, you get a beer, you get a beverage, you sit it's a slow game. It's 9 innings. There's 3 outs. People know the rules, the basic rules. It's an American tradition. You grow up reading the books in school. You know what baseball is all about. Now, with that said, baseball is no longer king in our country. You look at the ratings, look at the followings, you look at what people are doing. Football is king. And by football, I'm not talking about football. We're talking about tackle football. Football is king. Football has been dominating the sports world for 3 decades now. The NBA is not close. Hockey is not close. Major League Baseball is not close. And I don't see anything, not even pickleball, that's going to be able to overtake American football in the foreseeable future. So we've got to get out of this realm of debate where a lot of people we got to do baseball needs to market its players better. That's how we're going to beat football. Baseball needs to change these rules so that it can compete with American football. We're never, and by we, I'm talking about us baseball fans right now, we're never going to be able to take down and, pun intended, tackle the National Football League. It's never going to happen. That ship sailed long ago. And it's not even anything to do with marketing departments. It's just the realities of what people want in today's age. We're constantly on our phones. We want constant action. I mean, we can't go 5 minutes without either looking, if a commercial comes on the TV, what do we all do? Straight to TikTok, straight to Twitter. Multi-devices is dominant in today's age. Well, that's what American football gives you. It's constant action. It's 40 seconds in between each play with the play clock. It's tackling. It's explosive plays. It's strong arms from Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes. And that, along with the star power that they already possess, I mentioned Mahomes, different quarterbacks around the league, Josh Allen, like that's a large part of it too, is their stars are so much in control of the result of the score of the actual game. That's how they get their star powers, and that's why they mean so much to the National Football League. You look at Shohei Ohtani, look at what he did in 6 years in Anaheim, dominated the sport, multiple-time MVP. He did it on both sides of the ball, pitching and offensively, and yet they weren't able to make it into the playoffs one time. And that's with having Mike Trout. And I'm not saying that to completely shit on the Angels here. I'm just saying that baseball players have so much less control of the result of each individual game than compared to the NBA or the NFL. And that's what goes into the NFL's favor as well, is the star power that they possess. It's on a completely different level than Major League Baseball, because no matter how many followers, no matter how popular a player is going to get in Major League Baseball, they will never have as much control of the final score of the game as, say, a Patrick Mahomes will. That was a bit long-winded. Get back on track here. Baseball is never going to compete with the National Football League. So, with that being said, I believe, it's arbitrary, it's my personal belief, that baseball has run its course in the United States of America. Again, it's been around for 150, 200 years. People know the rules. People know all about it. And yeah, Rob Manfred can change the rules. We can enlarge the bases. We can put the pitch clock. We can implement a pitch clock, which, by the way, I think has been a fantastic change. And I've heard nothing but resounding feedback with the pitch clock since they implemented it back in 2023. We can change all the rules we want. Hell, move the mound back, move the mound closer, whatever you want to do. But baseball is what baseball is. And you can make minor tweaks, which is probably going to provide minor differences in ratings, popularity. But baseball is what it is. If you're not a baseball fan by now in 2024, you're probably not going to be a baseball fan in 2025. Like, people grow up with this game. People know what baseball is about. If you're not watching baseball, if it doesn't appeal to your interests here in 2024, what more can a Major League Baseball marketing department do? You can post all the TikToks you want. If people don't want to watch baseball, they're not going to watch baseball. At the end of the day, you can tweak all the rules that you want, but if the substance of the game doesn't appeal to you, and frankly, it doesn't appeal to this generation as much as it used to 100 years ago, there's only so much you can do. Now, I say that mostly discussing or mostly surrounding the United States of America. Now, if we look outwards toward the rest of America, what is king in the Dominican Republic? Baseball. What is king in Puerto Rico? Baseball. What is king in Cuba? Baseball. If these countries in South America, Central America, and the Caribbean, they don't play American football. They have soccer. They have actual football. But baseball is still king in a lot of these countries. The United States loves football. I love football. Do I like it as much as baseball? Probably not, but I'm in the minority in that. There was 500,000 people at the NFL draft in Detroit for a draft. Baseball, MLB draft, most people don't even pay attention. Most people probably couldn't even tell you who the number one overall pick was last year, Jackson Holliday. Most people, common fan. That's just the reality of the situation. So the reason I think that Major League Baseball should continue to look outward outside of the United States, and they are with these international games. They're going to have one in Puerto Rico. They had the game in London a couple of years ago. Mexico City, they just had a game a couple weeks ago. They are looking to expand the game in that capacity. This is why. Best players in Major League Baseball are no longer from the United States. Not all of them, not even the majority, but let hear me out on this. The top 10 MLB players, and this is according to MLB.com's top players going into the 2024 season. Of the top 10, half of them are not from the United States. Number one ranked player going into the 2024 season, Ronald Acuna Jr. He's from Venezuela. Mookie Betts was number 2, United States. Aaron Judge, number 3, United States. Shohei Ohtani, number 4, Japan. Freddie Freeman, number 5, United States. Corey Seager, United States at number 6. Juan Soto, excuse me, I lost my spot there. Juan Soto, number 7. He's from the Dominican Republic. Yordan Alvarez was the 8th best ranked player according to MLB.com. He's from Cuba. Garrett Cole, United States, number 9, and Julio Rodriguez from the Dominican Republic at number 10. So of the top 10 best players, according to baseball's experts, MLB.com, MLB Network, 5 of those players are not from this current country. In fact, Venezuela with Acuna, Soto, Dominican Republic, Cuba, Yordan Alvarez, and Julio Rodriguez, 4 of them are from Central America, Caribbean areas. National League MVP last year, Ronald Acuna Jr. He's from Venezuela. American League MVP last season, he's from Japan. Both of our MVPs last year, neither of them are American. In fact, 264 players in the league are from international countries, and that breaks down to 28%. So a quarter of Major League Baseball players, this is coming into the 2024 season, a quarter of them, more than a quarter of them, in between a quarter and a third, are not from the United States. Looking back on that top 10 list, well, if you look at the top 100, according to MLB.com, the top 100 players coming into the 2024 season, 36 of those 100 are not from the United States. They're from other international countries. 36% of your top 100 players in Major League Baseball right now are not from our country. And yet, we have 29 of our 30 teams, more than 90%, 95%, are United States-based organizations. The only lone exception, Toronto Blue Jays, right? They're from Canada. Now, 36% not from the United States. Okay, so where do we look? Where do we look? We don't want to go to the United Kingdom because baseball, in Europe in general, baseball is not really a thing. Like you want to expand the game, you want to expand a fan base, but does Europe, can they really house and host a Major League Baseball team? Probably not at this juncture. You can't have a team in Asia due to travel time. They're huge baseball fans, and you see the World Baseball Classic every single year with Team China, Team Japan. The ratings are off the charts. Japanese Baseball League, the Nippon Baseball League, their ratings are off the charts, and they love their baseball teams. You hear from players all the time about the passion that those fans have. Unfortunately, with just the logistics of it all, you can't have a Major League Baseball team in Asia due to travel time and actual time. So you can't have an expansion team in Asia. You can't really have an expansion team in Europe. It just logistically doesn't work out. So where do we look? Well, of those 264 players that were from international countries, 108 of them were from the Dominican Republic. 58 were from Venezuela. 18 were from Cuba. 17 from Puerto Rico. 12 were from Mexico. And that finally, you get to Japan at 10, and then Colombia with 5, Panama with 5, Curacao with 4. So a lot of these players from international countries, 10 of them from Japan, majority of them elsewhere are from the South America, Central American countries. All right, so now let's try and figure this out. So we can't really have one in Asia because of logistics. We can't really have one in Europe because lack of popularity. But now we can look to Central America. But the problem is that some of these Central American countries, they're not as established as a lot of these other Major League Baseball cities. So what's the best partner here? Well, I personally believe that logistically, the best option for Major League Baseball to expand outside of the United States is Puerto Rico. The country of Puerto Rico is located about 1,000 miles off the southeast coast of Florida. It's a territory of the United States. That's a very, very key point. Now, Puerto Rico is not considered a state. It is a territory of the United States. They have 3.2 million residents, and they are United States citizens. However, while subject to U.S. federal laws, this is according to the country website, while subject to U.S. federal laws, island-based Puerto Ricans can't vote in presidential elections and lack voting representation in the United States Congress. As a United States territory, it is neither a state nor is it an independent country. I'm not a political guide. Take with that what you will. It's about a 3 to 4 hour flight from New York City, country of Puerto Rico. Popular players include Francisco Lindor, Carlos Correa, Edwin Diaz, Jose Barrios, and Yadier Molina. I found this fascinating. I talk about how baseball is, in my opinion, kind of run its course in the United States. Well, a perfect litmus test for that would be the World Baseball Classic. What are the ratings like from foreign countries, international countries with the World Baseball Classic? That should be a good indication of how popular sport of baseball is in other countries. Well, you look at the World Baseball Classic, the most watched games this last year, back in 2023, the most watched World Baseball Classic games were Japan and Spanish-speaking countries. The number one most watched game this last year in the World Baseball Classic is, according to Forbes, was Japan versus Italy, 2023 quarterfinals. Second most popular game was Japan versus Korea. Third most was Japan versus Cuba. Fourth was Japan versus Mexico. So what's the common denominator? Japan, right? So Japan, again, we just kind of established so that we can't put a expansion team in Japan logistically. Just would not work out. But it was Japanese Team Japan games, and it was Spanish-speaking countries. Those were the most popular views ratings-wise this past year in the World Baseball Classic. 2024 Caribbean Series, which is a professional league, call it the minor leagues, if you will. This last a couple months ago, they had the Caribbean World Series in the city of Miami, Florida. The Caribbean World Series had a league record 36,677 fans at Lone Depot Park in Miami. They average for the week 13,528 was the average attendance in Miami for the Caribbean Series. Again, it maxed out 36,677 fans for the World Series. For the entire weekend, it had an average of 13,500. 13,000, if you look at MLB average attendance, it would rank near the bottom. In fact, the Miami Marlins are right there close at about 11,000, 12,000 per game. Keep this in mind. Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs, they led the minor leagues last year, Major League Baseball minor leagues, with an average of 7,990 fans. So if you go by the average of the Caribbean Series, it was more than your average minor league ball club, but it was bottom of the league compared to the major league ball clubs in attendance. So one of the major aspects of Puerto Rico and one of the major question marks is travel, right? And a lot of people think, okay, you can't have one in Asia, you can't have one in Europe. There's no way you can have one in Central America. The travel would just be ridiculously long. Well, Seattle is the furthest team away from the rest of the ball clubs. They're kind of alone up in, my Puget Sound, Houston are alone by themselves up in the Pacific Northwest. So Seattle is a 2-hour flight to its closest team, which is Oakland and San Francisco. 2-hour flight. Well, San Juan, Puerto Rico, which would be the destination for a supposed expansion team in that country, it's a 2-hour flight from Miami. So yeah, the closest team to an expansion team in Puerto Rico would be Miami, and that would be a 2-hour flight. Again, I say that the closest team to the current Seattle Mariners right now is a 2-hour flight, same exact flight time to its closest team, Oakland and San Francisco. They have a stadium right now. It probably would not be the stadium unless they wanted to renovate it and build from it. They have Hiram Bithorn Stadium, which in Puerto Rico, in San Juan, Puerto Rico, they can have 18,000 fans in the stands. That's not nearly enough to compete with the standard for Major League Baseball. They would need a stadium much larger than that. So again, renovate it, build from within, whatever it would. There's a lot of logistics to be figured out. Now, there are some negatives to keep in mind with Puerto Rico, and this does not have anything to do with politics. This had nothing to do with any sort of animosity towards any certain cultures or groups. This is unfortunate reality of the situation, is that the poverty rate in Puerto Rico is at 42.7%. The poverty rate in the United States is 12.5%. Now, why is this important? Poverty rates in a country directly impact your income and your revenue. So if you're a Major League Baseball owner and you're looking to expand a team or build a team, you're going to look at poverty rate as a crucial point to whether to say yes or no, to whether you want to invest in a ball club and want to build a stadium and want to invest billions of dollars into building an expansion team. So the 42.7% poverty rate, and then you also include that the dollar bill is thought of as different in when you look at how much things cost and cost of living. There are major discrepancies and differences between what it is in Puerto Rico and what it is the United States, as evident by that poverty rate. And so investors that would want to expand in Puerto Rico, that's going to be a crucial point for them is, all right, how much return on investment am I going to have when you consider the fact of the current economic state in the country of Puerto Rico? Really, the major reason why I'm deciding on Puerto Rico, though, is because it is a United States territory. I absolutely believe that Mexico, the country of Mexico, would be phenomenal destination. We've already seen the success from these Mexico City games, albeit the elevation has been a talking point because balls are just flying in that stadium. But at Mexico City, Mexico, they have more of a population and probably more of what an owner would look for in returns of, or in regards to economics and return on investment than probably even Puerto Rico. Another country that probably looks better on paper would be the Dominican Republic, but you have to factor in that the Dominican Republic doesn't have much of a relationship when it comes to politics and economics between the United States and the DR, and that's a major factor in these massive billion-dollar investments. I mean, a major factor. You look at Cuba, very similarly, the politics there, it's just not going to be synonymous with what Major League Baseball wants to represent. So you start doing a pros and cons list. Like, yeah, okay, Asia has the fan base and the popularity, but the cons are it's way too far away and logistically just doesn't make sense time-wise, money-wise. It's just not going to happen. Okay, well, Mexico, they got a lot of pros. They got a stadium. We've already had success with the international games. The cons list, well, they're not a United States territory. And so the logistics of it wouldn't be as seamless as, say, a United States territory such as Puerto Rico. And you look at Puerto Rico, pros and cons. Again, yes, it would be brutal travel time for the Seattle Mariners to play in Puerto Rico. And especially when you consider the schedule that these teams play now, every team plays every team. All 30 teams play the other 29 teams. So the one road trip for the Seattle Mariners to go over to Puerto Rico would be tough. They'd have to mix it in with when they go to the Miami Marlins and Tampa Bay Rays, they'd have to fly that 2-hour flight down to Puerto Rico to fit in that series with this expanded team in Puerto Rico. And the travel time for the actual expansion team in Puerto Rico would be a lot. It would. If you're in the division with, you could make it work within the division. Like if they're in the same division as the Atlanta Braves, Miami Marlins, which would be the most logical, you can do your best, damage control. But you don't think that these Puerto Rican players would want to play in their home country? Like Carlos Correa is a free agent. Edwin Diaz becomes a free agent. Jose Barrios becomes a free agent. Like Francisco Lindor becomes a free agent, although he's signed till the end of eternity in New York. But just hypothetically, like if you're thinking about where you want to play as a free agent, there's going to be players from their home country that are going to want to play in their home country in front of their families, in front of their friends who they grew up playing with. Like that's a key piece of this too, because yeah, the travel time would suck as a Puerto Rican expanded franchise. And there's a lot of things going against this idea. There's certainly, I totally understand the argument of, hey man, like I like the idea of this, but this just isn't going to work. It's too much travel for the team. Again, the poverty rate in Puerto Rico is just too high. There's no way that an investor would want to jive with those numbers. But on the flip side of that, just the environments at these Latin American countries, they're second to none. I talk a lot about how, yes, the Oakland Coliseum is a bit of a disaster, but the environment at the Oakland Coliseum is unlike any other. The experience that you get at the Oakland Coliseum is unbelievable because you get drums, you get kazoos, you get flags, you get this energy that you don't get at your typical Major League Baseball ballpark. Well, you get that energy as evident by the World Baseball Classic games in these Latin American environments at baseball games, because baseball is king in Latin America. It is no longer king in the country of the United States. And so for that reason, I think the United States, yes, expand into, if they want to go to Vegas, if they want to go to Nashville, if they want to go to Portland, expand all you want. All I'm arguing here is that they absolutely should consider a Latin American country. Ideally, Mexico, Dominican Republic, yeah, Venezuela, that would be incredible. How logical is it? I personally would believe that it's less logical than expanding into the country of Puerto Rico, which is a United States territory and is a 2-hour flight away from Miami, and is a country that loves baseball, tons of history in that country, already has major players in the league right now, including Lindor, Correa, Diaz. Yadier Molina was their manager for their World Baseball Classic team. The Molina brothers are already involved with Puerto Rican politics down there. So baseball is a part of who those people are. It's a part of that country. Now, expand a team into the country of Puerto Rico. You get that Latin American energy at the ballparks. Are they going to be able to field, or are they going to be able to house 40,000 fans a game in Puerto Rico? Probably not. But if you can just be, an average attendance team, 20,000 to the game. If you look at the Caribbean World Series numbers, they were averaging 13, and that was in Miami. Now you bring and that was a minor league for the most part. The Caribbean Series is mostly like kind of a minor league, roster. All of a sudden you bring big time players, and you have Aaron Judge coming to Puerto Rico every week. You have Mike Trout coming to Puerto Rico. You have Ohtani coming to Puerto Rico. You average 25,000 fans a game. There's going to be a return on investment there, and you're going to grow the game into the countries that love the game. And that's what's most important, is that, yeah, maybe baseball isn't as popular as it once was in our country, the United States, but it's just as popular, if not more popular, in these Latin American speaking countries. And I think there's just a massive potential and opportunity for Major League Baseball to save itself from what it has turned itself into. And that is by appealing to the Latin speaking countries, because it's still king there. It is still king. There's a lot to be worked out here. I could probably discuss this for another hour. The politics between the United States, Puerto Rico, the economics of it all. And I'm not going to sit up here and act like I know everything about the situation in these individual countries and what the relationship is between, the governments. That's not what I do. What I do know is that there is a massive fan base in the Latin-speaking countries, and I think it would be great for baseball to expand into those realms. And that's what I'm here to argue. But regardless, I'd love to hear your side of this argument. Do you think Major League Baseball should expand into a Latin American country, particularly Puerto Rico? So please do hit me up on Twitter. Hit us up at Wake and Rake Pod across Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. We'll be posting all of these videos across our social media. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Let us know what you think in the comments. Do you think Major League Baseball should expand into the Latin American speaking countries? Appreciate you guys tuning in. Wake and Rake Podcast, episode 118, all part of the Believe Network. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk soon. Peace.